All right, everybody, welcome back to Beans No Ball. 10 weeks have come and gone. Welcome to the Week 10 recap. That's definitely got a lot to get into. I really got to watch all the games myself with, my Rams on by. So we'll just get right into it. Christian, let's get it going with Thursday night.
Yeah, so let's hop right into it with this really boring game that wasn't really that interesting, let alone towards the end of the game. But obviously, the story of this is Bryce Young still a lot of trouble going on with him in the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, still with the past games, he's had absolutely no help whatsoever, and the O-line still coming back to haunt him. I mean, the O-line giving up 3 sacks for 15 yards, but still, lots of the whole team is just, it's everywhere really, and really he was having no help, let alone with the run game alone. The whole game, it really wasn't clicking, other than the Bears' run game, which is the reason why they were pretty much, on the way to secure this victory. I mean, Tyson Bagent, he really didn't do anything. He had a pretty mid game to say the least, but I mean, O-line did his job and not giving up a sack, which is good, especially from what we were seeing from this Bears team. But D'Onta Foreman, which is a familiar face for me, that had him on my fantasy team last year. He had a decently good game with an 80-yard game and a touchdown, which kind of pretty much set the tone for the game on who was really going to win this one. And just let alone, it was just a pretty boring game, not so much. It's just hopefully the Carolina Panthers just finish strong and see what weapons they can find for Bryce Young in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about in the Sunday video. The Panthers is just in a horrible situation as a whole right now, and the Bears, they're kind of, this hurts their draft stock just a little, but we'll see what they get moving forward. But of course, into the final international game, the second Germany game, obviously second Frankfurt game ever, here with the Colts and the Patriots. And I mean, we knew the storyline coming into this. Bill Belichick, his job was a little bit in danger if they came out with a loss. And sure, that was exactly what happened. He didn't get fired, of course. We will wait and see. I mean, it is definitely going to be a big decision to make if that does ever come to play. But that is a decision for another time. And I mean, this game started great. Both teams did score on their opening drive, but little by little, I mean, it was, as you said with the Thursday game, this was a really ugly game. Nothing offensively. It didn't get really interesting until the end. I mean, sure, the Colts did have a chance. I mean, the Patriots definitely had a chance to do something. I mean, Mac Jones was driving. We can't say that, but I mean, right in the red zone. Probably one of his worst passes, and that's saying a lot considering the success he's had recently. That horrible underthrown floater that goes for the interception to, at the moment it looked like could have probably sealed the game, but in the end they got the ball back. Bailey Zappi was thrown in, obviously someone we're used to seeing since last season, and he even gets in the games because their game blown out so much. And of course, whatever that play call was, I don't know if it was his call, I don't know if it was Belichick, but the fake spike that ended up going for an interception that one really did end the game. Just a lot of questions for the Patriots as a whole, and hey, the Colts are definitely surviving right now with Minshew.
Yeah, it was just a pretty ugly game to begin with, and obviously with Bill Belichick with a lot at stake with him, and this loss pretty much just capitalizes his longevity with the team that's going to come to the end most likely soon. But obviously moving on to our next game, which is quite a thriller in the AFC still, so we're going to remain on that side, which was the Texans and the Cincinnati Bengals. This was a game. This was probably one of the best games we've had this week. And CJ Stroud, once again, pulling off another comeback, back-to-back weeks where he has to lead this team down to victory against this Bengals team. Obviously, reverse, they had a lead. And it looked like the Bengals, they were going to come back towards the second half, and that was pretty much the case. But obviously, with Joe Burrow throwing the interception that thought it could have been the deal, then obviously Stroud once again throwing an interception again, which could have pretty much sealed things right then and there. But obviously, CJ Stroud just doing what he does, and he's just showing everybody that, especially from the offseason where, I think he scored poorly on that one cognition test, and, he's not a test taker, he's a football player, and this right here, he proves it, ignoring all the hate, which, proved me wrong, as I've said in the past couple of videos, and he's pretty much doing that right now. So obviously a lot of people already including him in the MVP conversation race. So it's not too overlook at, especially since this is kind of you can really argue it, especially with the team that that's built around him. He does have weapons here and there with Noah Brown, which is a notable receiver for mine. He's finally stepping it up once again, and then Tank Dell, who I had I was pretty high on in the beginning of the season. He was looking pretty good as well. Same with Dalton Schultz at the tight end position. But the Texans, right now they're just building a team around Stroud, and it's really looking great. And, with the game they have next week, which we'll get into that, so we're going to show everything what CJ Stroud has. And the Bengals, as we talked about with the resurgence, there's still key pieces that they're really it's not cutting off for them, especially with the run game with Joe Mixon. It's really not getting any help for Burrow whatsoever, since he keeps having to throw the ball more. And, as we say, you have no run game, it's really going to implicate the pass game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he's definitely shot himself into the MVP conversation. Obviously, some of the guys that we really considered in there definitely looking like their stock's taking a hit. So we'll see what Stroud can do moving forward. But we'll move it into another surprising quarterback. I mean, the two quarterbacks we talked about in our big surprises in Josh Dobbs. Great game for him once again against the Saints here, and I mean, it was looking, like a smooth sailing for the Vikings for the most part. I mean, I believe how much, they carried sizable leads throughout the game. Did come into the fourth quarter when the Saints did start fighting back, and I mean, it was starting to look a little worrisome for the Vikings. I mean, we do know how much we talk about that defense. That is kind of one of their biggest concerns, as even from the start of the season, that offense has definitely been their strong point, but the defense does struggle. And the Saints were definitely taking advantage. Derek Carr was having a pretty good game for himself until, unfortunately, he did have to leave the game in concussion protocol and a shoulder injury. So obviously more to come will be coming out with that. And I mean, Jameis Winston did what he could. He definitely put up a fight. They still, of course, lost just a one-score game. They definitely had a shot into the end, but once the defense was struggling right in the end, near the end of the fourth quarter, I mean, sure, the Vikings defense did step up, big interception right at the end to really seal the game. And I mean, the playoff hopes are definitely alive in Minnesota. You never know what else can happen, and Josh Dobbs definitely looks to be the guy to help them moving forward for that.
Yeah, so the underdog story of the Pastronauts still remains intact, and it's going to be one of the stories probably in the last recent years of Josh Dobbs can pull off a miracle if the Vikings could make it to the playoffs. But obviously, still a lot of games to play, a lot at stake here. And now moving on to probably one of the more boring, slow games of a team that didn't really expect much, but the Packers and the Steelers. Once again, Steelers offense, it still remains to be mid, let alone under Matt Canada. They're 6-3, beating this really, really horrible Packers team that I had really high hopes on, especially with the Jordan Love finally taking the spot. But obviously, it's not looking like that. Jordan Love, he was doing okay for the most part, other than those two picks that he threw that were pretty crucial. But they're just not clicking. Obviously, he's still young. I honestly took a really big leap and expected him to really turn the Packers around, especially with the departure of Rodgers. But he's a lot of raw talent. This is definitely the guy that could potentially be the future franchise quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. But obviously, it's going to take some time, probably another year or two, maybe 3. Other than that, if it takes more than 3 years for him to get accustomed, which I really don't expect it, I think it's time for the Packers to finally start looking at a new choice here. But still a lot of time to come. He's still got a lot of time to develop, and he just needs more pieces around him, especially with Devontae Adams also leaving. I feel like if he stayed, a little bit more success would have been there. But Jordan Love, he needs more time to settle in. And and then looking at the Steelers team, Matt Canada, this offense, it's just the run game is what really kept them alive in this game. I mean, Jalen Warren is kind of taking more of the load over Najee Harris a little bit. They both had sensational games, but this run game really was taking the load off Pickett. Since let's be realistic, Pickett, he's having a mid-year. I mean, I believe he's like 13 wins, 13 touchdowns, I believe, or 13 interceptions. I forgot the stat exactly, but you could say he's in that mid category. So Kenny Pickett's kind of taking the load off from himself because of this run game. And the receivers, I mean, George Pickens, that was another guy I was expecting to, take a huge leap. He has his glimpses here and there, but honestly, I don't blame him too much, especially with, Matt Canada and everything. But with the Steelers being 6-3, it's really surprising, but it just have to wait and see once we start playing better teams.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, both of these teams, definitely different positions. With honestly, you can't say, those struggling quarterbacks. We'll still do. I mean, I guess you could say still have a chance, but we will wait and see what I guess more for the Packers, what they can cook up moving forward. But moving into another, I guess we could have expected this to go a little more disappointing, but hey, for someone we're a pretty big fan of, Baker Mayfield, what a great game for him. I mean, as for the Titans, sure, it started out pretty good. They drive down the field, get a field goal, get an interception on Baker. It looks like, I expected the Titans to win this game. It started out great for them, and near right after the interception. They didn't really get nothing else really came for the Titans moving forward. I mean, Baker really, I guess, he really locked in, finally kind of came into his own in this game. I mean, nearly 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. He really found that connection with Mike Evans. I believe, he only got 1 touchdown in this game, but as a whole, it was just, that connection was really thriving. And, the defense, I guess we can really say somewhat of a quick resurgence from last week. We see absolute collapse last week against the Texans for the Bucks defense. And in this game, definitely held their own. I mean, sure, it's not the greatest offense you could talk about with the Titans, but I mean, they shut them down after that field goal. Only got 2 field goals on them. Definitely a great performance for a mediocre Bucks defense as a whole. And I mean, as for the Titans, Will Levis did struggle. Sure, we got to put it that way, but he really wasn't getting help with that O-line. He was, had to run around most of the game. And I mean, we will wait and see. Obviously, it's, he is given the reins. We will see what he can do moving forward. But I mean, it's going to be a lot to wait and see what he can do with this struggling Titans team.
Yeah, obviously after that one really miracle game he had not that long ago, we kind of expected him to, be the future of the Titans. But obviously, after one game, had it come into mind, really can't, put everything after that, one game, a lot of football play, but hopefully something will turn around with this Titans so far. And, as you're talking about collapse, let's talk about the Jaguars' collapse against the 49ers. This game was just a beatdown. I mean, Niners coming off bye after 3 straight losses. I mean, you would expect them to come out, play angry, and finally have something at stake here against this Jacksonville team, who was on a pretty good win streak. But the Niners did end it. But I think Brock Purdy, once again, I mean, kind of showing how he was playing before. Obviously, he had Debo back. You make that argument, but Debo didn't really have a spontaneous game other than a 1 touchdown pass he had. I mean, other than that 1 touchdown he had. And then McCaffrey, still carrying the load, and the touchdown streak did it for McCaffrey after 17 games. Once again, it finally ends, but obviously that doesn't matter. They pull out this win, and it was a must-win after coming off those losses, especially with the seeding implications in the NFC right now, as Philly is in the lead. And as for the Jaguars, it was just a horrible show. I mean, this O-line was just getting hammered by this Niners D-line, and the Ohio State boys, Nick Bosa and Chase Young. Chase Young's finally starting to look like that fresh first-round pick that he was picked up from the Commanders at the time. And as I said before, I had my mixed emotion before with Chase saying he's not really showing his true potential, but he's had injuries, so you really can't. I really had to excuse that. But with this Niners defense and the way they're finally building around, I feel like Chase can finally succeed, especially with his pass rush. When you got Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead literally on the same line as you, I think that defense is going to be scary. And then for the Jaguars, I mean, now after this loss, you kind of got to start thinking for the AFC South, especially with the run that the Texans are having. So it's really got a lot to look at, especially with Trevor Lawrence. He didn't have that much help. Christian Kirk was kind of stepping it up, but that O-line, it just wasn't doing good against this Niners pass rush.
Yeah, and that's the story of the game, the Niners pass rush. You see the picking up Chase Young really was a big piece for them. And I mean, sure, you see a lot of people saying, oh, the Niners are fully back. Brock Purdy looks just like where he was. I mean, he definitely got to hold back a little bit on that. He finally got all his pieces back. I mean, sure, it's the system. It's starting to look that way. And hey, if he's thriving, I mean, what more can the Niners ask for? So we'll move it into probably another one of these games of the week. We got a good 3 games that really definitely could have been up there for categories for game of the year, definitely. And obviously here in Cleveland and Baltimore, I think you really got to say that collapse narrative is coming right back for Baltimore. I mean, they were up 24-9 in the third. They looked like they had this game locked up. I was feeling good about discarding my earlier Browns pick of them winning the North, but I mean, we see the defense really did collapse. They really let them get back into the game, and a very crucial pick 6 for Lamar Jackson in the 4th quarter to they should have tied this game up, but a missed extra point kept the Ravens in the lead. It looked like they were gonna be able to hold on, but when the Ravens didn't do anything with their next possession, and right away the Browns, they got that game-winning field goal. So it was, I mean, it's looking, my earlier Browns pick, it may be looking a little better. I mean, we definitely see that, that defense is definitely making up for, I guess, a subpar offense with Watson. But if he does come into his own, it is definitely a division that is definitely winnable for them. For Lamar Jackson, I mean, I know he's my midseason MVP right now. Definitely a really disappointing showing for him. He's got, I mean, obviously a short week coming up that we're going to talk about right now, but the Ravens they look like a little bipolar team, man. Sometimes they look like Super Bowl contenders, and sometimes they give us results like this.
Yeah, especially, with me picking the Ravens to win the North, this division, it's potentially still up for grabs. I mean, we get the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Browns. Sure, the Bengals, but currently out of the playoff contention. That North is pretty much up for grabs. Anyway, any team in that division could be considered consistent, but it all just turns out to see the Ravens can, turn it around, especially, since they are probably the favorites to win this. And now moving on to another great game. The return of K1. He finally came back and made the start, which is obvious that we made the call. And I said it before that I was not a fan of him returning at all. Did not want to risk that. It's pretty reasonable, but when with them coming out with this victory against the Falcons, sure, yes, it's the Falcons. They're starting to dysfunction once again, but again, it was the 1-8 Cardinals coming into this game, so you would kind of expect even out both sides, but it was Kyler had a, you wouldn't expect that great. He threw a pick, yes, no touchdowns, but he made some pretty clutch plays that kept the Cardinals in the game, and obviously got that game winner. And in the fourth quarter, that feels like kind of settled it in, which is really great for Kyler with the game winner. Really happy to see him, and it's, I guess, now looking kind of switching the narrative. It's sure, yes, Kyler remains, and he's actually starting to win a bit potentially. I really doubt they're gonna go far. I think that's blatantly obvious it's not true. Obviously, I had him going at 3 wins, you had him at 2, so our predictions with that right there. But obviously it's better for him to start playing well, playing better, obviously prepare for next season, get more weapons on for Kyler, especially and then James Conner as well. He was all right, not really too much to say there, but and then looking at this Falcons team, it just Taylor Heinicke, he just shit the bucket in this game. He really, 55 yards and a touchdown. Looking at that, it's still mediocre. Bijan had to carry the load. Finally, him starting Arthur Smith, realizing why they drafted him in the first round. The run game tried. Bijan tried, carrying the load for the most part, but obviously that pass game, he was just really struggling with the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, definitely. And you see, look, if Kyler keeps it up with this, that definitely eases the decision on who. Just to think Kyler with Marvin Harrison Jr. would definitely be a phenomenal duo for years to come. So that definitely, you would like the Cardinals to keep it low, and if they do get the chance to draft him, that would be great for them. But obviously moving in here, definitely 100% the game of the week here with the Detroit Lions and the LA Chargers. What can you say? My narrative that I was saying, that Chargers defense might be a little up. This game was non-existent defenses, to say at least. Even with the narrative we always put up with the Lions defense really being stronger. Herbert picked them apart for the most part. Just a great game. Even Austin Eckler finally, coming back into his own. He got back into the end zone, and Herbert threw 4 touchdowns. Just a phenomenal game for him. And Keenan Allen getting into the end zone twice. Just everything was clicking for the Chargers, but it was even stronger for the Lions. Just a great game for them. Sure, Goff didn't have the numbers Herbert was putting up, but he was more efficient. It was definitely more on that run game that the Lions were really going heavy. David Montgomery finally brought himself back, and as a whole, just a more complete game for the Lions. Everyone was really spreading it out, and you can definitely say that there might be more concerns for the defense once again, as like you say, those 2 losses, it was pretty big defensive collapses, so it might be something to look forward in seeing. If the Lions do have some struggles, it might be that defense once again. But you definitely say they definitely have one of the top offenses in the league right now, and this result right here shows it, man.
Yeah, obviously Lions turned it around after a really thriller. It was mainly it was obviously an offensive battle. Defenses were both struggling here, but realistically, just all looking at the Chargers with Brandon Staley at the coach, and Herbert, especially with Mike's thing, not really gonna blame him. It's just he's never really had a good defense. So once again, a lot of things got to change with that Chargers team. And now obviously moving on to my game, kind of expected. So this time after my last couple of lies, I'll actually keep this one a little brief, but like I said, it was I expected a blowout, and it was indeed a blowout. Sure, say what you want, Dak had a phenomenal game. CeeDee Lamb had a phenomenal game. Brandon Cooks finally had a game that he had finally looking like a great defense, doing what they should have done. Sure, make the narrative that it's the Giants, right? But I mean, a professional team letting up a total of 600 yards. I mean, come on, not even the Cardinals did it this season, and they're supposed to be the worst team. Yeah, they're realistically supposed to be the worst team in the league, but not even them. Sure, yeah. I mean, Tommy DeVito at quarterback, no experience, a horrible defense, that O-line that cannot block for anything. Sure, yeah. But, good teams. They're supposed to blow up bad teams. Sure, say what you want, but the Cowboys say, oh, you can't beat good teams, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you saw what Dak did to Philly. We just shot ourselves in the leg at the last final drive. Dak's line, I've said it already, sure, when I let my emotions get to me, I had my little rant about Dak, but realistically, when my mind's there, Dak's the guy to potentially get us, to the championship, and it's really looking like it could. Obviously, we have a very easy schedule with the Panthers and the Commanders next, Seahawks, and then finally rotating back to Philly. A lot at stake here, but it was just a phenomenal win by the Cowboys, and if Dak keeps playing like this, he could potentially be, MVP, or who knows, probably actually take us far this season.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go back to keep it brief for you. It was really nice to see a former Ram in Brandon Cooks really succeeding here. Outdoing CeeDee Lamb in the numbers. So it was definitely nice to see. But I will give you the benefit of the doubt. Dak is definitely coming into his own. I know he gets a lot of hate for the team he plays on, but he is definitely playing at that MVP level. We will see what's to come in the next couple weeks. Definitely got an easy schedule. So we'll move it into division opponent of yours, definitely playing up to level right now in the Commanders and the Seahawks. And I was honestly expecting the Commanders to really come away with this one. Sam Howell was definitely playing a very solid game, and just unfortunately they left too much time on the clock for the Seahawks. And sure, look, they did tie it up. It was looking like they were going to go to overtime, but a phenomenal catch for DK Metcalf to really seal it and finally get that field goal to win in the end. But as a whole, sure, the Commanders do play up to a lot of teams' level, but looking at the Seahawks, I'm really starting to worry, if I'm being honest. You gotta take it for what we're seeing. Sure, a really ugly loss against a Ravens team that we see is on and off. Sure, they were on that day, but what can you say about the performance of the Seahawks? Now you see how they played against let's just call it a mediocre Commanders team. I'm gonna have a lot to say that for in the preview with you obviously playing my Rams, but definitely not sold on the Seahawks right now. And a game like this really is really glaring to see. How much are there playoff implications at hope in the future?
Yeah, obviously it's not something to really look into with the Seahawks team. It's really looking like they can find finally dysfunction once again. I know they got a tough game against your Rams coming next week, but if you can really make the argument, the Commanders, they're able to put up a fight. They're a sneaky good team, but again, it is the Commanders, and you would expect the Seahawks to beat them a little bit, but something around that team's got to switch around, especially with Geno Smith. They want to make it far in this playoff team. And now closing out the Sunday slate with the Sunday Nighter, which was it was a good game to say the least towards the end. The Jets and the Raiders. Once again, story continues with Nathaniel Hackett and his play calling ability. Everyone's too quick to blame Zach Wilson. You would expect it, but Zach Wilson was doing all he could this game. He was doing pretty okay in the beginning and actually building a little bit more leverage toward the second half to win this game. And it was looking great. It was looking great for both teams, especially with him getting Garrett Wilson involved really, really early. And when he was already at 16, I believe in the first quarter. So that was really good. And then after that, it was kind of a steady decline. But he was still able to put up a bunch of big numbers. But obviously, once again, the rush attack was still a little limp in this game for the Jets. Zach Wilson did carry the load with the 54 over Breece Hall's 28. But really, towards the end, that's where pretty much everything came down that final drive. To that final last shot Hail Mary. It was right there. Garrett Wilson, it was right there. But I believe it was the tight end, Conklin, I believe, number 83. Yeah, Conklin. For some reason he was playing DB and he swatted. I can kind of argue that it was a last second call. It was your fight or flight. Come on, it was a last second call. If you were in that position, what would you do? You got to make a quick decision like that. So I could kind of feel for him. You can argue that, but it sucks, man. Garrett Wilson, he had the corner beat and he had the positioning to catch the ball right there. It really sucked to see. But another thing with the Raiders, like we talked about earlier, past couple videos, the cultural change with Antonio Pierce. These Raiders, it's a completely different team without Josh McDaniels. I mean, it's nice to see even Josh Jacobs finally getting involved. Devontae Adams got an 86-yard game. He's finally looking happy. But once again, they're 5-5, and they have a really tough schedule to finish off this season. I believe the third toughest schedule, and they play the Giants and the Jets. I know, like I said, what I said about the Giants, still it's a professional team. These are still professional teams. But when you're really looking into it, call the Raiders cocky, sure, call them what you want. But this is a really big step up for this organization. A whole other cultural change. These players are finally getting involved with each other after McDaniels finally done. So if they're able to make a turn around this season, Antonio Pierce, this could be another pretty good storyline for this season.
I mean, of course, yeah, not a lot to say about the Raiders. Just, I mean, they're playing good. Like you said, they're playing inferior opponents, sure. But like I said in Bean Talk, man, they really don't have much to worry about this season. It's just, to ride out, see if Pierce can really be that guy moving forward. And, we will see if Mark Davis can actually make the right call. Of course, we'll close this off with Monday night. And what a game to say here. I mean, everything we've been talking about this Buffalo Bills team just keeps getting worse. The season keeps unraveling. First and foremost, the interception problem with Josh Allen. I mean, everyone always talks about Dak Prescott with that narrative. It's definitely going to start growing with Josh Allen right here. I mean, it's been growing. He's definitely getting all the hate he's been, I guess, won't say deserved hate, but it kind of is. And his rookie year struggles are kind of starting to come out once again. And just as a whole, I mean, not even just Josh Allen, the defense is, once again looking, we don't really see any improvement at all from what we've been talking about. I mean, to Rasul Douglas, now he's a little more accustomed to this team. I mean, you saw him out there making some plays, sure, but as a whole, as a unit, they're just definitely not doing enough. And they started out slow as a whole, the team in general, and they did kind of start bringing it back. I mean, we see that long run for Cook. I mean, it almost turned into disaster right there with that fumble, but luckily it did come right back to him, and they ended up getting that touchdown drive. But the story of the game, definitely gotta say here, the final play should have had it won for the Bills right there. But I mean, what are you doing? 12 men on the field on a missed 31-yarder? And I mean, not 41-yarder, right? Yeah, I believe it was about 41 yards. I mean, Will Lutz was having a crappy game as a whole already. Missed the extra point, missed the kind of little botch play. So special teams as a whole was struggling for the Broncos. Bills really couldn't take advantage. They just kept shooting themselves with foot. Really, really ugly game for them, and they are definitely in major danger of missing out on the playoffs. And we'll just wait on and see. And for Denver, you never know, man. What can they do? I mean, obviously in a really tough division, and the AFC, a lot of teams vying for the playoffs. You will see. I mean, with the resurgence of Russell Wilson, and even that Broncos defense, who was really looking really solid right now, it is just to wait and see what they can do. Maybe they can make some noise, and maybe our prediction of them making the playoffs wasn't too far-fetched after all. So that is going to wrap us up for the Week 10 recap. Going back to our predictions, I mean, it was I call it a little mediocre week for us. With we both went 9-5. Definitely had some little surprises in this week. Split our disagreements, so I'm still up two on you in the overall, of course. And well, we definitely got both of our teams in action coming into week 11, getting into the thick of the season. So Christian, I'll let you get us started with your Cowboys.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, we got a really easy schedule coming into it. I'm gonna put that in quotes because I'm not gonna jinx myself, but we're going to once again. I'm gonna keep it brief. Once again, we're going against a very dysfunctional Carolina Panthers team with the rookie quarterback that really hasn't found himself yet, especially with the lack of weapons he has. Bad coaching from Frank Reich, which is still pretty decision from the front office of. I don't know why they hired him. They saw his tenure with the Colts, but blah blah blah, whatever. But there should be another pick back in the most part, but sure, call another stat pad game for Dak Prescott. But I would like to see Dak Prescott have more games like this, get in his groove, especially when we start playing top teams again, like Philly, and sure, the Bills, especially how they are right now. But it's still gonna be tough games, especially come December football, which I've talked about, and everyone that knows December is one of the toughest months let alone when it comes to, seeding and, divisions and all that. It's really important, especially with playoff implications in mind. But so I really expect a nice, pretty late, once again, another laid back victory by this Cowboys team. Hopefully, they don't decide to, play with my feelings and keep the close game. But, don't expect a nice, pretty good win here. And as for my game of the week, this is gonna be a lot for people, which is Cincinnati and Baltimore. Both these teams coming off a pretty tragic loss. I mean, Cincinnati almost pulled off a comeback, but that was just cut short by CJ Stroud doing miracle things, and then Baltimore, who blew a lead, and they've been blowing leads recently, in the past couple of years. I mean, stat wise, I believe like they're 7-3 when it comes to leading at half or having a lead in the fourth or around there, somewhere like that. The other teams being 10-0. They kind of switched the narrative of that whole stat right there. But this is going to be another really important victory, especially a division rival game in the North. Especially how I talked about again, we're really wide open. I mean, the winner of this game pretty much, I wouldn't say sum it up, but if Cincy wins, they still lock, and then if Baltimore loses, that just opens up a better path for the Steelers and the Browns. And you pick the Browns to win this division. Obviously, Baltimore winning, that kind of just keeps them in a tiny bit lock before we hit December. So where actually teams start playing like that. But this is gonna be it's gonna be a pretty great game between Burrow and Lamar. I'm gonna really not hope it's gonna be a huge defensive battle. I'm really gonna expect a pretty good amount of score between this. Not a really huge not a shootout, not at all whatsoever. But if Burrow, if he's not gonna get going early in the half, then I'm pretty sure Ravens will probably walk away with this one, and Lamar can play like the MVP self he is.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to expect a defensive battle here, is what we're seeing how these defenses have actually looked in the past 2 days. But I mean, we'll definitely see what's to come. I do think Burrow and Lamar are gonna really show out. Hopefully have some bounce backs, and we'll wait and see. This is one of our disagreements. Got a good couple amount of them, so we'll see how these games turn out. Of course, my Rams back in action, and a rematch of week 1. And sure, I know you love saying it was week 1, definitely a lot of fluky results there, but the Rams, I'm not too particular the position they're in right now, but I mean, look, I keep saying I would prefer them to lose out, kind of boost up their draft potential just a little bit. But I mean, look, we get Matthew Stafford back. I believe we're getting Kyren Williams back off IR, so there's definitely a lot of potential in what we'll be able to do. I mean, that game against the Seahawks in week 1, there's a lot of good to take from there. And also looking back on, just the position the Seahawks are in right now. I keep saying it, the defense, that highly touted defense, giving up big numbers against, an iffy Ravens team, and this Commanders team, which was a glaring team to give up almost 32. So definitely do have concerns for that defense and Geno Smith as a whole. So I mean, I've been saying that the last 2 videos. Geno Smith kind of looking like maybe he was that one season wonder, and in that week 1 game, sure, all the struggles were there. So I do expect a lot of the same from that week 1 win. I mean, sure, we'll wait and see. These 2 teams are definitely in different spots from week 1, but I would hope for a win. I'm thinking for a win, so I do think that the Rams will be able to pull this one out. Definitely not holding out all the craziest hope, but for my predictions, I will give it some parity with you. And obviously for my highlight game, not much else to highlight here. Super Bowl 57 rematch. Definitely gonna expect a great game Sunday night here with the Eagles and the Chiefs. This time, in Arrowhead. Obviously just Super Bowl champions getting in at home, and I know you're taking the Chiefs. I know you're taking the Super Bowl champion, but I mean, look, apart from Kelsey, and that's what the Chiefs offense has been running through. It's usually been Kelsey. Apart from that win against the Dolphins in Germany, usually the offense runs through them, and I definitely think that the Eagles are going to be able to game plan around that. And as for the Chiefs defense, they've obviously been through their own struggles. There's definitely a lot of questions there, so I think this is going to come down to which defense does more against the offense, and I do have a lot more trust in the Philly defense. So because of that, I'm going to say Philly gets a little minor revenge from the Super Bowl, and definitely could be something to come, which obviously they were my Super Bowl pick to at least make it out of the NFC. We'll see how much that comes out moving forward. Of course, that will wrap up our quick Week 11 preview. definitely gonna have a lot to talk about for next week with 4 disagreements. I believe that's some of the most that we've had in any of our videos. So definitely could see some shakeups in our predictions. So obviously we will see you guys for the Bean Talk on Thursday. Hope you guys can stick around for that. I also appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next videos.